Hey folks, welcome aboard. Great to have you here today. Let's go ahead and get started. So to kind of introduce the topic today, as you see, the title of it is Labor versus Capital. Over the last few lectures, we've been talking in depth about the development of capitalism, and we talked about the 5 pillars of capitalism and so forth. And we've given it a pretty fair shake. Capitalism is fairly functional, but not completely. Now, starting today, we're going to start poking holes at capitalism. I want to be clear. I'm a fan. I've been successful in capitalism, but it has issues. It has problems. And we're going to start talking about these today so that we can understand what we can do, how we can operate in these environments and so forth, all that good stuff. To start, though, I want to tell you a story. So this is a leaflet that I got when I lived in France. So as you know, I spent part of my high school in France in like 1982, 83, something like that, 82, 83. And so I'm a high school student. And in France, well, they were predominantly socialist, but they had a strong communist party. And this is a flyer that was given to me by one of my classmates from the Ligue Communiste Révolutionnaire. It's basically the French Communist Party in France, a political party. They have since, in 2009, they disbanded and reorganized as the anti-capitalist party. Anti-capitalist party. So we know where they stand, right? And this was a leaflet calling for a demonstration on May 1st. Of course, May 1st, right? Kind of an important day in communist history. At 2:30, and gave the address and so forth. The student was really interested in giving it to me, an American, because one of the things they were going to be protesting here was a halt to the U.S. aggression in Nicaragua and El Salvador, and all that sort of good stuff. But it also had some anti-austerity measures, things going on and so forth. So, yeah, if you were a French student, you were with people who were part of the Communist Party, at the very least socialist. During the winter and the summer, I actually joined a communist group so that I could go skiing in the Alps. That was the whole thing. It was, you know how like maybe you went to camp as a kid, when you were a little kid, your parents sent you off to summer camp or something like that. I don't know, maybe they don't do that anymore, I don't know. Well, back then, the summer camp and winter camp was run by the Communist Party in many cases. And so I signed up just so I could go skiing. And it was great. It was some really great skiing. But today, we get to really kind of explore this stuff in depth, or at least the ideas that brought about socialism, communism, and so forth. And so, yeah, with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I got this camera going first. All right. Oh, Isaiah, you're on your wife's phone again. Okay, fantastic. Good to know, Isaiah. So let's go ahead and play with this idea a little bit here, and I will move over to this camera. First, we are going to talk about this concept called alienated labor, alienated labor, founded by Karl Marx, but we're also going to be including some Adam Smith. Now, I want to be clear on something. Karl Marx was not a politician or anything. He was a philosopher and an economist. And in the same way, Adam Smith was really just a philosopher, economist, and so on and so forth. So as a philosopher and economist, they were really good at identifying opportunities and problems and challenges and advantages and disadvantages and so forth. Marx did not create the Communist Party. That was created by a whole bunch of psychos who did some pretty awful things. But it's really Marx's critique of capitalism that kind of gave birth to and drive behind the communist movement. I say all this because Marx has some really good ideas, or at least some observations. Not ideas, observations. Observations that Adam Smith, the patron saint of capitalism, agrees with. Let's explore some of these. Now, first, I want to call something out. We've been talking about capitalism. Once again, I'm a fan, okay? But that doesn't mean it doesn't have issues, all right? So let me show you what I mean. Here are the, and if I need to move over here, here are the 5 pillars of capitalism that we've been talking about: the profit motive, private wealth and capital, free market, laissez-faire, invisible hand. Okay, well, let's look at these. The profit motive. This is the idea that you're always driven to get more, always working to better your economic circumstance and so forth. Constant progression and improvement of the current state. That's awesome. I am a big fan of eternal progression, constant progression. I am very fond of the saying that I am better today than I was yesterday, but not as good as I'll be tomorrow. For me, the whole point of being on this earth is to grow and learn and expand and progress. So I like this. However, there's a problem. It means we are constantly dissatisfied with our current state. And for those of you playing at home, we live perpetually in our current state. And so there's a real risk that if we are constantly driven by the profit motive to better our current state, that we will become dissatisfied with our current state, that state in which we live all the time. I've really trained myself to really try to avoid, I will be happy when. I really came to understand years and years ago that I will be happy when insinuates that I am unhappy now. And that's not the case. And so we need to be happy in our current state. The profit motive does not make this easy. We have private wealth and capital. Investment of wealth benefits society as a whole in the form of jobs, taxes, access to capital, and so forth. Yes, this is good stuff, Maynard. All right, this is really good stuff. But there's a problem. Investment of wealth creates disproportionate wealth, power, and privilege for a very small minority off the labor of the majority. In other words, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's really the way it works, all right? If you look at the proportion of wealth to population and the power that comes with that wealth over the last, 50 decades and so forth, 50, 60, 70 years, it is obscene how few people control the majority of the wealth and by extension have disproportionate power among the people. That's a problem, okay? Free markets. We talked about free markets. I love free markets. Encourages innovation, which delivers new features, better quality, lower prices. I love free market. So I recently changed my Wi-Fi here at my home from Xfinity to Google Fiber. Now, in the past, you really didn't have a choice. It was just Xfinity. And when you only have a choice of one, that's not a free market. They have no incentive to improve their product, to add new features, to lower their prices, anything. Well, Google Fiber comes along and I'm switching, and I expect a lot of other people are switching. I'm getting a better product for less money. Xfinity will be driven now to improve its services. I'll be curious to see what they do. This is free market at work. I love it. On the other hand, creates contrived needs to keep people purchasing, prices some people out of the market for basic needs. So with a free market, in order for us to perpetually create growth, we need to create need. And frankly, we don't really need all that much. And so we shift our whole manufacturing system over to creating contrived wants, which means, yeah, we have lots of Louis Vuitton bags, but we don't necessarily have, basic needs for everyone. This is an issue. Let's see. Oh, Zara, you did the same thing in terms of Google Fiber. Yeah, it really is a game changer, isn't it? Totally agree. Okay, laissez-faire. That one right there, laissez-faire. All right. Enables a natural, harmonious, and self-regulating system to work efficiently. Really does. On the other hand, a natural system is amoral and so lacks a moral compass and devalues what makes us human. Okay? Natural, doesn't have a moral compass. If you survive, you survive. If you thrive, you thrive. If you die, you die. It doesn't care. So the idea that we would have an economic system with no moral compass is pretty disturbing. And then we got the invisible hand. My dog is freaking out, trying to figure out how to get out. Invisible hand allows value to flow freely where it can create further value and so on and so forth, whether we mean to create the value or not. It's pretty amazing when you think about how it works. On the other hand, not all value creation is rewarded equally, either monetarily or in terms of influence. So some value is more valued by society than others. And so as a result, we have football players making bazillions of dollars, and we have K through 12 teachers that are on food stamps. This is the invisible hand at work, choosing to allocate resources as society values them. So there's an issue here. So I want to be clear once again. This is not saying that communism is bad. That capitalism is bad or broken or awful or anything. It's just saying that if you love something, you need to understand its strengths, its weaknesses, and find ways to mitigate for those weaknesses. And Karl Marx does a great job in helping us do this. Now, to play with this idea of alienation, I first want to kind of set the tone in terms of, let's think about a baker, right? A baker right here. Look at these ladies, right? They are all working together. They're kneading the bread together. They're adding the water. This is a really hands-on community thing. They are all participating in every aspect of bread making. It's a very artisan process here, and they produce something of real worth to the community. Okay, they're making bread. On the other hand, this corporation is making bread. All right, so we have conveyor belts moving flour around, and And oh, look, they lift things. These people aren't making bread. They are lifting bags and dumping this out. This guy here, he's pushing a button. He never touches the bread. He just pushes a button because, well, we let the machines make the bread. And so we are no longer putting ourselves into our product, into that which we make. We're now just standing around like a schmuck going, yep, the bread is moving along the system, right? And so we are now removed from our product. We don't really have anything to do with it anymore. You look at all those loaves of bread, and yet we've only seen 3 or 4 people involved, okay? So this is in part what Karl Marx is concerned about. Now, so that you know, Karl Marx believes that work is our species' essence. Let's define that. Let's let Marx define it. Animals are solely trying to survive. Human beings are supposed to be more creative and free. If a person's primary activity is laboring for a wage needed to survive, then they are more like animals than a human. They are alienated from their species, okay? So here's the point. An animal is just trying to survive day to day. That's fine. That's what animals do. Marx says, though, we're kind of special animals, right? We're supposed to be creative and free and thrive and do all these things. However, if all we're doing is working day in and day out just to survive, we are not fulfilling that which our species can become. All right, so he's going to go into some depth on this. We're going to talk about different types of alienation. Still, let's let him continue to explain a little bit. Man is a creature of his species. He is a conscious being, that he is able to direct his life activity, and that he treats his own life as a subject matter and as an object of his own determination. You have self-determination. You can choose what you do, what you become. Alienated labor reverses this relationship. Man, the self-conscious being, turns his chief activity, labor, which should be expressed as profound essence, into a mere means of physical existence. In other words, he's saying, listen, we should be able to do some cool-ass stuff with our labor. We should be able to create and experiment and, well, I'll be honest, do things like what I'm doing here. I am exploring my creativity, my innovation. I am fulfilling my species' essence by trying live streams in these different ways and so forth. And Marx says that's what we're supposed to do. However, if all we're doing is working day in and day out, you wake up, you eat, you go to work, you go home, you watch a movie, you sleep, and you just do that every day, you are not fulfilling your species' essence. Okay, so he says there are 4 types of alienation. Let's explore each one of these, and then here in a little bit, we're going to actually look at some examples, all right? So we have alienation from the product. So in this case of a baker, right? A baker is close to the product. Someone pushing a button, on a massive bread machine, that should say bread, not break, bread making machine is alienated. So instead of touching and feeling and making the bread, you're just pushing a button. So you're alienated from the product. A baker makes all the profit. Someone pushing a button makes only a tiny portion of the profit. The vast majority of the remainder is going to the owner. So, yeah, You don't get to benefit from your labor in the same way that the owner is benefiting from your labor. You're alienated from the product. Okay, we also have alienation from one's own labor. All right. The baker is involved in every step of the process and practicing their craft. The worker in the factory, on the other hand, just does one small, repetitive, monotonous task, one highly removed from the final product. I was watching an episode of How It's Made, old series that was on the Science Channel or something like that. But it's on HBO now. And they were showing how jeans are made. And yeah, there were these, 12 people all lined up, and each one of them is doing this one small repetitive task. And it looked really, really, really monotonous. They are just willing to they are just selling their mechanical labor for wages. They are not creating a product through which they can express themselves. Okay, so, many of you are in college, not because you don't have a pretty decent job right now. I mean, but you're really selling your labor, right? And so you want to get more skills so that you can sell your product. You can sell your service, not just your labor. That's what Marx means by alienation from one's own labor. Next, we have alienation from others. Okay, one another, you and me. Since workers are not connected to the product in a meaningful way, they are not connected with one another in a way that gives them meaning and purpose in their community. So, if you're a bread maker in your community, you say, I'm a bread maker. But if you work in the bread factory, you don't say, I'm a baker. You say, I work in the factory. That's a different role to society, to say, I'm a baker versus I work in a factory. Continuing on with this puts workers at odds with one another as they look out for themselves rather than as a collective. You and I have to compete with one another for these jobs now, especially if it's a low-skill factory position. Okay. Now, remember, we're talking old days, but trust me, it continues today. If you have a low-skill factory position, you can be replaced like that. And your bosses may be inclined to remind you from time to time that you can be replaced like that. And so you are competitive with others to retain your position. And then we have alienation from oneself. Okay. Labor fulfills our species' essence to create and express ourselves and our accomplishments, but capitalism robs workers of their species' essence, that thing which makes them human. They are denied the opportunity to create, innovate, critically analyze, problem solve, and affect an outcome. These factory workers and so forth, they're not creating or innovating or analyzing or problem solving. They're just doing what they've been trained to do over and over, right? They are denied of their species' essence. They are not living to their full potential. This is the concern that Marx had. Now, it could be easy for us to say, well, yeah, Karl Marx, and I've been trained by years and years of American education, if you were educated here in America, to hate Karl Marx and everything he has to stand for. That's a shame. Because Adam Smith, who we all are required to have a separate shrine for in our homes here, he agrees. Check out what Adam Smith says. This will be on 2 slides. Check this out. The man whose whole life is spent in performing a few simple operations, of which the effects too are perhaps always the same or very nearly the same, has no occasion to exert his understanding or to exercise his invention to find out expedients for removing difficulties which never occur, he naturally loses, therefore, the habit of such exertion and generally becomes as stupid and ignorant as it is possible for a human creature to become. Whoa! Talk about throwing shade. I mean, the hell. So he's saying, listen, these people who are working in factories, they never get the chance to innovate, to problem solve, to analyze, to create, to do any of these things. And since they never have the chance to do these things, they lose the ability. They just lose the ability to do that which makes them human. They lose the ability to do that which makes them human. And as a result, they become as stupid and ignorant as it is possible for the human creature to become. That's Adam Smith, folks. Oh, but there's more. Should be a quote on the top there. The torpor of his mind renders him not only incapable of relishing or bearing any part in any rational conversation, but of conceiving any generous, noble, or tender sentiment, and consequently of forming any just judgment concerning many of the ordinary duties of private life. Okay, it means since he's basically as stupid as a beast, he's incapable of enjoying life. He can't hold an intelligent conversation. He can't really conceive of anything noble and generous. And so basically he loses the power to exercise sound judgment. And frankly, they're not even an effective citizen in our community. This is rough. I mean, this is really rough. Lindsay says, I'm a bit confused about essence. I try to apply these things to hair world, and the style is creative, but, essence, right? Yeah, right on the ouch. Okay, so here's the thing. The very fact that you're trying to apply these things to the hair world means the essence of our existence, according to Marx, is to create, to imagine, to explore, to innovate, to try new things, to fail, to learn. This is what makes being a human being totally awesome. This is the purpose, our raison d'etre. So you working in the hair industry, which is a beautiful example of this, hairstyles change, your art and craft changes, the techniques you use, the products you use, the way that you interact with the person, the way you get to know them as a person and to express who they are and who you are in the hairstyle you do as you grow in your craft. This is the species essence. This is what you get to enjoy doing. And if you don't enjoy doing, you can go to school and learn something else and so forth. So yeah, great way to connect that. Yeah, every hair is different. Oh boy, ain't that the truth. Let's see. Anna also says, I agree when you do work that is repetitive. If a problem comes up, you forget that you can troubleshoot. Yes. Oh, it is so true.
Hi, I'm Captain America. And I'm here to tell you, stay in school, and that if there's one thing you're going to learn from this class, it's to endure silliness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You guys are getting it. You're totally getting it. Okay, so Smith and Marx, okay, they're kind of on the same page, all right? The thing, though, is they disagree on the solution, okay? Marx and Smith agree on many of the problems. They disagree profoundly on the solution. Okay, but we'll talk more about that later on. So all of this begs the question. Okay, so Marx talked about the 4 types of alienation, and Adam Smith said, yeah, they're going to become stupid as beasts and unable to hold a noble sentiment or conversation. Are workers powerless to address this? Well, yeah, back in the day, and today as well a little, all right? Remember, we're not talking history class. The very fact that you guys are getting this shows that these are still problems that exist. By the way, Zara says, I've worked on jobs that are repetitive, definitely mind-numbing. Yes. And thank goodness for a podcast, right? Yeah, it gives something for our minds to think about as we're listening to the podcast. Okay. So here's the problem that Adam Smith sees with workers solving this, or why workers will be unable to solve this. He says, the workmen desire to get as much, the masters to give as little as possible. The former are disposed to combine, organize, in order to raise, the latter in order to lower the wages of labor. In other words, hey, listen, as an employee, he's saying in this situation, employees are inclined to try to do as little work as possible for as much pay as possible. And employers are inclined to pay as little as possible for as much productivity as possible. And this is an issue, obviously. He goes on to say, it is not, however, difficult to foresee which of the two parties must, upon all ordinary occasions, have the advantage in the dispute and to force the other into compliance with their terms. So the first thing he says is, first of all, the masters, the bosses, all those factory owners, being fewer in number, can combine more easily. Now, we need to talk about this. Combine meaning organize and plan together. Now, back in the day, this wasn't so much illegal. We'll talk about that on the next slide. But first, it is a lot easier. Let me point something out. If we take a look at this picture up here, I guess, right? You're going to notice something. You're going to notice they're all old white males. They're all old white males. They all went to the same Ivy League schools. They all live in the same neighborhoods, and they all have more or less the same objectives. Build their businesses as large as they can and get as rich as possible. And furthermore, there's not that many of them. So if you have a situation in which there are not many people and they all share many attributes and characteristics, it's pretty easy to see how these people can get together and agree on some things. It's not hard to imagine this. On the other hand, workers, there's hundreds and thousands of workers, and they are all different ages, races, ethnicity, backgrounds, and so forth. Getting hundreds of thousands of workers from diverse, disparate backgrounds to come together and agree on anything, it ain't going to happen. And these guys take advantage of this. It's like, hey, if you can't organize, which, by the way, as we'll see on the next slide, was illegal at the time, we will. Okay, so next one. The law, besides, authorizes, or at least does not prohibit, the employer's combination, while it prohibits those of the workmen. Okay, so Zara, you are absolutely right. We are now talking about the unions. So back in the day, but remember, this is not a history class, so put a pin in this. We're going to come back to it. Back in the day, unions were illegal. I know, right? I mean, what? But it was not illegal for businesses to kind of organize. And so the workers were really powerless in this situation, really powerless. And so that is what gave birth to the union movement. And many things that we accept and enjoy today are a result of the labor movement. So, safe work environment, 40-hour work weeks, overtime, this, that, and the other is because of the work they did. Number 3, in all such disputes, the masters can hold out much longer. A landlord, a farmer, a master manufacturer, or a merchant, though they did not employ a single workman, could generally live a year or two upon the stocks, their savings, which they've already acquired. Many workmen could not subsist a week, very few subsist a month, and scarce any a year without employment. In the long run, the workman may be as necessary to his master as his master is to him, but the necessity is not so immediate. In other words, yeah, employers need you, but they don't need you as much as you need them. They really hold the power because they've got money. If you go on strike, they can go on and on and on without producing or selling anything because they've got money. Whereas if you don't have a job, I can't speak for you, but for me, if I lost my job, I probably would not be able to make it more than a month or two. I don't have that much savings. So Salt Lake Community College needs me, but not nearly as much as I need them. And that's what Adam Smith is pointing out here. Now, I say back in the day, but the union landscape is really changing today. These are 3 articles on 3 different Supreme Court rulings lately that have been really dialing back the power of unions and amping up the power of employers. And this is problematic, especially as we move more and more into a gig economy. As you and I do, and maybe you do as well, we instead of working for a company, we work for ourselves, doing these gigs, setting up stores, reselling, YouTube channels, driving Uber, you name it. We don't have any protections that employment would provide us. And it's becoming more and more the case that even those who are employed are losing protections. So you'll want to keep an eye on this. You will want to keep an eye on this. Hey, by the way, have unions in the past become too big, too powerful, and corrupt? Yes. yes, and yes. So in many cases, unions are to blame as much as anything else. But it's really in the 1980s with Reagan, whom I voted for. Okay, my first vote ever. First vote ever. With deregulation, with Reagan and so forth, that unions really started to lose their power. And that was over 40 years ago. And a lot has happened since then. So it's something you'll want to keep an eye on. Okay. As I say, both agree on the challenges, not the solution. Karl Marx says, well, we need to seize the means of production, is what he says. In other words, the government should run means of production, which would be apocalyptically awful. Adam Smith says we need to go to the free market. We need to rely on the free market and the invisible hand and so forth. A better solution, but if we do that too much, it's apocalyptically awful. As we pointed out earlier, this causes problems. So as we talked about with David Potter, the United States follows kind of a blend, very, very free market, but then we have a few aspects that are more on the socialism side, trying to find that right balance. And whenever you see politicians arguing, it's always about the balance of these two schools of thought. Where do we amp things up? Where do we dial things back? Okay. We are now going to talk about Mike Lefebvre, and he's going to show us some real world examples of the alienation. But first, my butt is getting tired, so I think it is time for a dance break. Let's do it. All right, come back over here. We'll start here. All right, good to move. Now, we are going to now talk about one of my favorite readings. Oh my gosh, I love this reading so much. If you've done it, congratulations. You're now a richer, fuller person for the effort. If you've not read yet Mike Lefebvre, Steelworker, do yourself a favor and read this. However, we'll go ahead and go over some of the major quotes. What Mike Lefebvre is a steelworker from the 1970s, I think this was. And we get to, through him, see all four types of alienation from labor exemplified. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and say hello to Mike. He says, I'm a dying breed, a laborer, strictly muscle work. Pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. That's it. That's all he does, he says, right? By the way, Mike is a genius philosopher. Trust me, this man is amazing. But that's what he does. He's a laborer. Okay. Well, let's look at how alienation of labor is exemplified through his work. First one, alienation from the product. All right. Remember, we are distanced from the product. We're pushing buttons rather than producing something real. And we're not making the profit. So alienation from the product. Well, look at what Mike says. You can't take pride anymore. You remember when a guy could point to a house he built, how many logs he stacked? He built it and he was proud of it. It's hard to take pride in a bridge you're never going to cross, in a door you're never going to open. You're mass producing things and you will never see the end result. He does not see himself in the product. He'll never see the end result. He'll never use it. Whereas a guy who built a house could say, et voila, I have built a house. He's like, I work, but I don't see the results of my work. So alienation from the product. We also have, if you'll remember, alienation from our own labor. Doing small, repetitive, monotonous tasks. You guys talked about these, right? Thank goodness for podcasts. Selling our mechanical labor. We're more of a machine than a person. Let's see what Mike says. Somebody's going to build something. Pyramids, Empire State Building, these things don't just happen. There's hard work behind it. I would like to see a building, say the Empire State. I would like to see on one side of it a foot-wide strip from top to bottom with the name of every bricklayer, the name of every electrician, with the names. So when a guy walking by, he could take his son and say, see, that's me over there on the 45th floor. I put in that steel beam. I put that steel in. Picasso can point to a painting. What can I point to? A writer can point to a book. Everybody should have something to point to. Boom. I mean, that just completely blows my mind, right? Everybody should have something they can point to. I love that. I love that. Okay, continuing on. One time I earned a PhD. For my PhD dissertation, I studied one's ability to thrive in the workplace. I'm not going to go into detail on it. It's boring. However, I had to do a study for this dissertation, and this is a quote from one of the people that I interviewed. And this is somebody who truly does feel connected with his labor. All right, so this is a beautiful thing. So let's see what he said. Being able to point at something and say, I did that, or I worked on that, or your random person on the street can go out and touch this thing that I worked on. The closer that the product that I worked on is to something that somebody would recognize, the better I feel about it. To be able to say, I'm one of a couple of people that made this happen. That was a tremendous feeling of achievement, and it was a feeling that persisted. I really like that. And so, kids or something. Oh, I like it. I like it. Yeah. Although sometimes you'll want to not point to your kids. Is this your kid? Nah, I never met the kid. Yeah, take them away. Yes. And that's something that you can take pride in. I love it, Kiana. I love it. Okay, continuing on. We have alienation from oneself, unable to achieve one's species' essence in our work, denied the opportunity to create, innovate, critically analyze, problem solve, affect an outcome. Let's see how Mike goes through this. I got chewed out by my foreman once. He said, Mike, you're a good worker, but you have a bad attitude. My attitude is that I don't get excited about my job. I do my work, but I don't say whoop-de-doo. The day I get excited about my job is the day I go to a head shrinker. How are you going to get excited about pulling steel? I really like this. I like this for a lot of reasons. One is it's a great example of alienation from ourselves, right? We want to fulfill our species' essence in our work, but he can't do that just pulling steel. I also like it because companies and bosses are forever going to their employees and talking about their attitude. And it's like, listen, yes, I have a responsibility for my attitude, but so do you as my employer. It is your job, dear employer, to create an environment in which I can fulfill my species' essence, to create, to innovate, to problem solve, to analyze, and to affect an outcome, to actually have some self-determination in my work. And if you have not provided any of these, it's not on me that my attitude suffers, it's on you. I contend that most employers would not agree, but I'm right. Okay. Another thing he said, I really like this one. When I was single, I could quit, just split. I wandered all over the country. I worked just enough to get a poke, money in your pocket. Now I'm married and got 2 kids. His voice trails off. I worked on a truck dock one time, and when I was single, the foreman came over and he grabbed my shoulder, kind of gave me a shove. I punched him and knocked him off the dock. I said, "Leave me alone. I'm doing my work. Just stay away from me. Just don't give me with that hands-on business." I would rather work my ass off for 8 hours a day with nobody watching me than 5 minutes with a guy watching me. Who are you going to sock? You can't sock General Motors. You can't sock anybody in Washington. You can't sock a system. Oh my gosh, this man is so insightful. You can't sock a system. And the thing about whether it's capitalism or socialism or communism or whatever, you have to operate within the confines of this system. And if you don't like it, you can't sock it. And he wishes he could sock a system. I love it. I love it. Management definitely sets the tone of the crew. Yes, absolutely. And are we at, I'm going to hit one more anyway, just to give it to us. So. Get the points going. Spider-Man. Okay, let's keep going. Alienation from others. Not connected with one another in a way that gives them meaning and purpose in the community. Check this out. He was at a bar one time. He's at a bar and somebody comes up to him. A college student came up to him in the bar. He saw a book in my back pocket one time and he was amazed. He walked up to me and said, "You read?" I said, "What do you mean I read?" He said, "All these dummies read the sport pages around here. What are you doing with a book?" I got pissed at the kid right away. I said, "What do you mean all these dummies? Don't knock a man who's paying somebody else's way through college." He was a 19-year-old effete snob. Now, in full disclosure, I had to look up the word effete when I first read this, okay? Snobby, elitist. Effete is another word for elitist. And I really like this. He felt that he has been relegated to a certain socioeconomic state, right? All of these dummies. You're just a dumb steel worker. And so you've got a book. Wow, I never would have thought of that from a dumb steel worker, right? So while everybody else is occupying their different spheres, he's in the lowest rung. When, in point of fact, he's probably one of the smartest people in town. So, yes, alienation from others. Now, when we'll go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and do this one. So, and we'll get some points and so forth. I'm going to tell you about 2 people, and I'm going to get out of the way. I've actually got to figure out, I do know a way that I can make myself disappear without too much trouble. I just have to do it. Okay, we got 2 people here. The one on the left In high school, he stocked shelves at Woolworths and stained wood. By the way, Woolworths doesn't exist anymore. He dropped out of college, then spent 3 years as a night security guard working for minimum wage. Spent 7 years working nights for FedEx, sorting freight, driving a tug, and delivering packages. And no, we're not going to explore this in the comments and so forth because you already know the answer. On the other hand, the guy on the right, department manager for a global tech company based in the Bay Area. He's a published writer, college professor, and accomplished athlete. Speaks 3 languages, have 3 degrees, including a PhD, and lived in 5 countries. Now, when I first used this as an example for the lecture and people don't know me, you already know I'm both this person. I'm this person up here. I'm this person over here. But when you don't know that, it's really easy to look at what somebody is doing with their life and make a judgment about them and their worth to society. I would contend that you would look at this person here and say they are a little lost and not as hardworking and not as smart and not as much worth to society. Whereas this person over here, oh yeah, they're a genius and all kinds of cool stuff for society. No, we are all these people. But in capitalism, our connection with the community is defined by what we do. And so instead of Lon Schiffbauer, the guy with the Batman ring, I'm Dr. Schiffbauer, professor of business and leadership. It's just even sits bad with me. Okay. Now, I want to tell you a story. He said, when I was single, I could quit, just split. Now I'm married and got 2 kids. So back in the day, I used to work for FedEx. It's FedEx today. Back when I worked for FedEx, it was Federal Express. I was actually there when they did the name change. And I'm young, and I'm married, and I've got a kid, right? And so it's probably no secret to you that I can be a pain in the ass. And so I'm at work and I get, my boss gets mad at me really bad. Now, I want to be clear. 9 times out of 10, when I got in trouble at work, I deserved it. Okay? 9 times out of 10, I deserved it. But in this one case, I didn't deserve it. I was framed, I was railroaded, I forget what it was, but I know for a fact I did not do what he accused me of doing. Furthermore, he wrote me up, and this write-up was going to have an effect on my salary, my pay rate, and yada, yada, yada. I was pissed. Well, the answer is to do what I've always done as a kid. I'd quit. Just quit, leave, quit. When I was single, I could quit, just split. Well, I was all ready to, in a fit of righteous indignation, yell at him and quit, when it occurred to me, I have a kid now. I have a newborn baby. And FedEx provides me health benefits. And furthermore, they're paying for 50% of my tuition. And it struck me, I couldn't quit. I had to just suck it up and say, yes, sir, 3 bags full, and go back to work. And I felt 2 things at the time. I felt a sense of maturity that I had not felt before. I thought, well, son of a bitch, I think I just did an adult thing. I also felt a sense of enslavement to the system. Because I had a wife and kid, and because I needed the benefits and so forth, I had to put up with whatever came my way. This was alienation. Okay? So, just kind of a thought. We're not going to worry about that one. And so, there you go. How long was it? An hour. I like to try to get these done in an hour. Yeah, there's a chance it wouldn't give me a good reference. Yes. Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right, Jenna. And then, Zara, kids and having a family definitely changes your perspective on the employer. You know, gotta pick your battles sometimes. Amen to that. Yeah, gotta pick your battles sometime. Absolutely. As I was saying, I know that, we're scheduled for an hour and 50, but I understand that doing this for 2 hours is trying. So I try to get through all the main important stuff here in this hour. Fantastic conversation, fantastic input. As per usual, do me a favor, send me an email. Let me know you are here. I'm going to go ahead and take us up to the 6, right? We can go ahead and enjoy that. Never be an adult. Well, Anna, there's actually some pretty kick-ass things to being an adult. So, you give and take it. I love it. If you have any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, we're also, hey, no class next week, right? Because of the 4th of July. So you're kind of on your own. I'll send you a recording of the one that we are going to miss from a past semester so that you can use that if you like. But the readings are really straightforward. You're going to be fine. So we actually won't see each other again for 2 weeks. But I'll take care of you. I always take care of you, all right? Or at least I try to. If you have any questions, stick around. If you need to move to a Zoom meeting, we can. Otherwise, thank you for joining. Thank you for your participation. And until we talk again, have a fantastic day. Kiana, thank you. We'll be talking real soon. Anna, great. Glad you could join. You betcha, Zara. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Okay. It says she's going to watch my production. Oh, YouTube, except Zoom to learn more. Hey, Isaiah, totally do that. All right. Let's hook up and help you guys out wherever we can. Anna, we'll see you later. All right, it looks like folks are dropping off. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. If you need anything, let me know. Send me an email and we'll take good care of you. We'll see you.